I'm Akash, and this is your News of the Week for the week of August 8th to August 14th, 2021. Let's take a look at some of the headlines for this week. And we begin with the fact that New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is going to be resigning on August 24th, 2021, over cases of sexual harassment by 11 women. Now, the next story I want to talk about is the fact that COVID-19 is back and it's breaking records. But first, the FDA and the CDC have permitted and recommended the third booster dose for immunocompromised people. Now, immunocompromised means that one's immune system has been compromised by a disease. So that means when, for example, a virus comes along, the body isn't able to react properly because its immunity has been compromised. Now, the next one I want to talk about is the fact that there might be a new variant of COVID-19 that's strong enough to evade the COVID-19 vaccines. It's called Lambda, and we'll talk about it in a moment, but first, the Taliban has been going on an offensive since May, as the United States has been withdrawing from Afghanistan, and so the longest war in American history and in Afghanistan's history is actually drawing to a close, and there might even be a chance that the Taliban could win. I'll show you how and why this is happening in just a moment, but first we'll talk about our last story. It's the Olympics. As the Olympics have ended on August 8th, I thought it would be fitting to take a retrospective look at this year's games, perhaps the most interesting of all time, and we'll take a look at what's been going on and some of the highlights from this year's Olympics. Now, what I'm going to talk about here is we're going to start off with some of the more detailed topics. And so we begin with the fact that New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has announced that he would be resigning on August 24th over cases of sexual harassment. Now, you may remember all the way back in 2020 during the height of New York's COVID-19 pandemic that Andrew Cuomo and his administration were heavily praised for his well-executed handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. He even wrote a book about it. But the thing is, despite all of this, there have been allegations that started to rise that A, the numbers that were written for COVID-19 cases may have been slightly lower than what they really were, and two, more importantly, it seems that there were cases that Andrew Cuomo himself had sexually harassed multiple women. Now, soon enough, it became so much of an issue that was going on that the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, announced that she was creating an independent investigation into what was going on. Governor Cuomo, presumably under pressure, that was mounted, to get this gone on and show the truth. And so he had to sign it, and so the investigation started, and it ended on August 3rd, when the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, released the 179-page report that involved a lot of interviews, recordings, and understandings of what's been going on, which pretty much proved, with a lot of evidence to show for it, that indeed Andrew Cuomo had actually sexually harassed 11 women who had worked with him in the administration. So now that pretty much the jig was up, and so as this was going on, this pretty much meant that every politician had to voice their opposition against Cuomo. This included pretty much all of the New York State delegation, and yes, this did include both of New York's senators, Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand, plus Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker, and even President Biden himself, all voicing their opposition against Cuomo and calling on him to resign from office. And as the pressure mounts, Cuomo was faced with just two answers, two ways to finish the issue. Either he would resign, or the New York legislature will make him resign by impeaching him. So, choosing either one, he had to pick resigning, and so on August 10th, 2021, he himself, Cuomo, had announced that he is going to be resigning from office entirely. By August 24th, we'll see the Lieutenant Governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, now become the new governor. And this is actually going to be the first time we'll have a female governor of New York. So from this point onwards, she's going to be serving until the end of Cuomo's term. And that point, and that's going to be in 2022, then she can actually run for a gubernatorial term, which she actually says that, of course, she's going to do. So that is what's been going on with the New York governor situation. Now, let's take a look at our COVID-19 update. COVID-19 is back, and it's breaking more records than ever before. We're seeing records being broken for most COVID-19 cases. In Florida and Oregon, case rates are climbing out of the charts. Plus, the third wave is very destructive. It's gotten over 180,000 cases per day, which that's actually just happened yesterday. The current average is roughly like 100,000, but gosh, we might even be heading for 200,000 cases. Things are incredibly dangerous, and it's not just America. The worldwide rate, as the third wave increases, has jumped up all the way to 600,000 cases every single day across the whole world. Millions have been infected, and millions more have died as a result of this COVID-19. And now this is wave number 3. And I really hope that this is going to end very, very soon. I hope this situation will end soon. Now, next topic I want to talk about actually relates to the fact that both the FDA and the CDC have permitted and actually recommended the use of the third booster dose for immunocompromised people. Now, you may be wondering, what's immunocompromised mean? Well, the thing is that if one is immunocompromised, that means that their immune system and therefore their immunity is compromised, and that means that a disease has pretty much taken away most of the functional abilities of the immune system. And so, if the immune system is compromised, that means if, let's say, a virus comes along and, well, things are going to head south very, very quickly, as the body isn't going to be able to react as it usually does, since the immune system has been compromised by the previous disease. So that's what's going on with this situation, and now the FDA has announced that they're actually going to be doing this. They're going to be releasing the third booster dose for both Pfizer and Moderna. They're going to permit it, and so it will be authorized, and that means that millions of immunocompromised people can now actually get a third booster dose, so that way they can protect themselves from COVID-19. The CDC has also recommended this for certain immunocompromised people as well. I think this is a major improvement, and I hope that the whole COVID-19 will end soon. But the thing is, it may not, because there is a new variant on the scene, and it might be dangerous enough to actually evade COVID-19 vaccines. We're not too sure of this just yet, but if it turns out to be true, this is something big. And this is the Lambda variant of COVID-19. Now, you may know that these COVID-19 variants are named after letters of the Greek alphabet. So the fact that this says Lambda means that, well, we've gotten quite a long way in the Greek alphabet. There's a lot of different variants of COVID-19, and this is one of the big ones. Now, compared to the normal COVID-19, which usually doesn't stand that much of a chance against vaccines, Delta stands a little bit more chance, Delta Plus a tiny bit more. Lambda, according to a new study, it hasn't been peer-reviewed yet, but it most likely will. This new study has reported that Lambda is more contagious and that it could even evade vaccine protection. This is pretty dangerous. It was first found in Peru, and currently it's infected out pretty much a lot of South American countries, And also America, where the first few cases have been found in Japan and have been found in California, and Japan as well, whose first case of Lambda actually just so happened to be in a Peruvian Olympic worker, which is quite interesting. So what's been going on here is that this Lambda variant is very, very dangerous. And so, although the WHO, World Health Organization, has currently labeled it as a variant of interest, some experts are saying that this might cause an unintentional downplaying of the Lambda variant, instead of labeling it as a variant of concern, like the Delta variant. The thing is, it most likely will in just a moment. We just have to confirm what's going on. And so, if the fact is that Lambda is very, very, very dangerous and could even evade vaccine protection, I'd say make everything that you got to keep yourself safe from COVID-19 and from Delta and Lambda. This is getting really, really dangerous, and I hope that the pandemic will end soon. Now, the next story I have actually relates to the Taliban, because as you know, America is beginning to withdraw from the war in Afghanistan, America's longest war in all of its history. Now, to be fair, at this point, most of the battles are now between the Afghan government and the Taliban. And so it seems that without America and its allies' support, the Afghanistan government and its army is slowly falling behind and is slowly succumbing down to the Taliban, the radical group, which is pretty much intent on taking over all of Afghanistan. Recently, starting in May of this year and continuing in greater and greater numbers, the Taliban has begun an offensive as it is beginning to take over districts at first, then whole provinces. It's even taken over Afghanistan's second largest city, the Kandahar. So now that Kandahar has been taken, how long will it take until Kabul falls to the Taliban, and then Afghanistan will become the Islamic Emirate again? How long would it take until Afghanistan is radical? How long would that be? Well, as it turns out, US officials have realized that it's actually going to be only 30 to 90 days. Their study has been conducted, and this is the result. It's only going to be 1 to 3 months until the Taliban marches right over to Kabul and perhaps what may as well be the last battle of the war in Afghanistan. We may have to do something about this. Now, the thing is, the withdrawal from Afghanistan followed up. The original plan was, of course, for it to be finished behind September 11th, 2021, the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, which kickstarted the whole war in Afghanistan. The only issue is, we're actually going out faster. The problem is, even though we're actually going out faster, which was our goal, it's also severely hurting the Afghanistan. And the reason why is pretty much because, well, I mean, you guessed it. It's without the US and its allies, the Afghanistan government and its army isn't doing all too well out in Afghanistan. So the Taliban is now getting the upper edge, and now having taken control of Kandahar. If you look on Wikipedia and there's going to be an image, showcasing where is what, and who owns where, the territorial changes. And if you look at it, I kid you not, the Taliban is so close that there is pretty much taken all the outside borders of Afghanistan. There's not that much that's actually part of the Afghan government. And so what's happening is very dangerous. Plus, the United States is actually helping out a little bit. They sent 3 battalions. The thing is, they're only sending 3 battalions in order to get all the U.S. Embassy employees out of the place and return them back to America to serve elsewhere. So I guess that wasn't as helpful as we may have thought. But that is the situation that's going on in Afghanistan right now. It is incredibly scary, and I hope that things will become a lot better very soon. Now, our last story of the week is all about the Olympics this year. As you may know, the Olympics closed on August 8th, 2021 with a spectacular closing ceremony. Now, let's talk about why this Olympics is so special and what makes it the most interesting one of recent times. And so we begin with the fact that, well, I mean, it's really obvious. The Olympics in 2020 are being held in 2021. Well, what more can I say? It's coronavirus delays that postponed the Olympics 1 year afterwards. But the marketing stayed, and so it's still Tokyo 2020 all the way through. So the Tokyo 2021 Olympics was also very notable and very special because it's the only one in recent times in the modern era, as the IOC would have it call you. It's the only one in the modern era of the Olympics to have had no audience in the stands, in the stadium, cheering for their favorite athletes. That's not there. I mean, there is a limited audience, but to be honest, like, everyone is seated several seats away from each other. That matches like 6 feet or even more. And to be honest, it's mostly just filled with nonetheless, it's filled with all of the Olympic dignitaries and the members of the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, which is the group that organizes the Olympics. So those are the two major things that made this Olympics very special. Now, off of the medal tally, the United States just edged over China to take both the most medals in total and the gold medals. 39, if I have it right, with China just barely there at 38. But in the end, the United States just took it all up, and there was a path there. If the U.S. got all 4, I believe, of the matches that it would be competing in on like the last 2 days of the tournament, then they would gain, and we would make it up to the top of the list in both gold and total. And so the thing is, we did it. We got all 4 of those gold straight up. In fact, I believe the marathon running medal ceremony took place during the closing ceremony, which is pretty cool. And so that edged out America up in the lead. And of course, the host country of this year's Olympics, Japan, safely solid in 3rd. Now, let's talk about some of the highlights of this year's Olympics. For example, Allison Felix, the American running superstar, who actually has become the most decorated track and field Olympian athlete of all time. In history, we've never seen someone gaining 11 gold medals throughout 5 Olympics, I believe, from Athens 2004 all the way down to here. It's Tokyo 2020. And that is how we got 11 gold medals. Plus, she's actually a mom. She had a baby in 2018 with C-section, and through all of that, she still took time, and she practiced so hard, and she's gotten through all of this, and she broke the record at this year's Olympics, becoming the most decorated Olympian athlete of all time. She's like a legend in running, and I don't think we'll be forgetting her at all. From Athens to Beijing to London to Rio, all the way here to Tokyo, she's been an inspiration to all of us, with a total of 11 medals, 7 of which are gold. It's truly an inspiration. She's an inspiration for all of us. Now, the next story I want to talk about relates to the fact that you may remember the Tunisian swimmer, freestyle swimmer, I believe, Ahmed Hafnaoui, who was Tunisian and managed to win a stunning gold medal in the 400 meters freestyle. So that is something that is super, super cool. He is actually, I believe, only the 3rd Olympian in history to have won a gold medal in swimming right out of the 8th lane. And if you may know that the 8th lane is actually the slowest qualifying lane. The 1st lane is for the fastest one to qualify for the final. The 8th lane is for the slowest swimmer to qualify for the final. Ahmed Hafnaoui was in that 8th lane, but he still took the gold, even beating out the 1st place one. It is so incredible. and it's such a heartwarming moment. He's become a star in his home country of Tunisia, welcomed heroically by officials and of course his family and friends, while the rest of the world applauds him for such a surprising and stunning victory. Ahmed Hafnawi is super cool, and that's a really heartwarming moment. Now, there's a couple awesome cool moments like Eddie Alvarez, for example, who became one of the few Olympians to have won both a summer and a winter gold medal. Winter back in 2014 with a silver in speed skating, and now summer in baseball in 2020. This is quite impressive. Both are silvers, but both are just that cool. And it's so impressive to see Eddie Alvarez. It's so cool. Now, if we take a look at Caleb Dressel, who's the American swimmer with the most amount of golds this year at 5 gold medals in total. Meanwhile, Australian swimmer Em McKeon takes the most total medals at this year's Olympics with 7. And so finally, at the end of the Olympics was the closing ceremony on August 8th. It was spectacular. Of course, just like the opening ceremony, most of it was actually just done pre-recorded because, you know, it had to be. It's coronavirus. And so as Japan got a coronavirus resurgence during this time, we had to do it like that. So now, as most of it's pre-recorded, it featured performances highlighting Japanese culture and celebrating the unity of the Olympics with the brand new motto, the updated motto of the Olympics, faster, higher, stronger, together, which I believe is a great addition, as it used to be just faster, higher, stronger, but of course they just added in the word together to symbolize the unity of all the world's all the participating countries at the Olympics, because that's what it's all about. So now, with the closing ceremony, it actually featured presentations for Japan and Tokyo, and actually Paris in France, because that's where the next Summer Olympics in 2024 will be hosted. Paris, France. So they held a presentation for that, and finally, at the end of all of this, at the end, the Olympic cauldron closed down up to its original shape, putting out the flame and ending perhaps what is the most interesting and special Olympics of all time. In the modern era, we haven't seen an Olympics this cool. And that is something that is so awesome. And that is all of your news of the week. For the week of August 8th to August 14th, 2021, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon in another news of the week. Goodbye.